Hello everyone, welcome back to the Accent Designer. I'm Osama Gazal, and in today's video I'm going to be talking to you guys about a few steps that we can follow in order to make selecting color palettes easier and end up having beautiful, accessible, and efficient color palettes for our projects. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So oftentimes selecting color palettes or building color palettes for any design system or product, digital product you're working on might be a little bit challenging. You're trying to be creative, but at the same time not radically changing what people feel comfortable navigating. You're trying to get inspired by other companies and products on the market, but at the same time not copy exactly what they did. So it's a little bit here and there, and it's a bit more challenging than other tasks when it comes to the UI design process. So step number one, try to understand the underlying theme and pattern of the product or business you're part of. Whether it's energetic, calm, quiet, are you building a meditation app, fitness website, video streaming services, music services, food ordering app or website, it depends. Understanding how that works will help you a lot to understand the underlying message and theme, and that will take us to point number two. Understand basic color symbolism, meaning that you need to understand what each color represents in color theory. So for example, red represents energy, love, passion. Black represents values like strength, depth, elegance. But if we look at something like the green color, it mostly represents things like nature, health, environment. So color symbolism or understanding color theory in general will help you a lot to align the design process to the business goals and the product goals. Those who study color theory, arts, and design, they do understand the concept of having all the colors spread across a single spectrum, and with that comes multiple definitions to each color group. So there is a complementary color spectrum, triadic color spectrum, split complementary color spectrum, and even analog color spectrum. And without getting much in details, for example, analog color spectrum refers to colors that are placed on the same spectrum right next to each other on the color wheel. So because talking about color spectrums and color theory in general can take like one video on its own, so I'm just gonna leave the links to color harmony and color symbolism down in the description if you want to get more in depth. And now, so we have a good understanding of the underlying theme and pattern, the business and product we're working on, and we also have strong understanding of the basics of what kind of color wheels and what does the color spectrum mean to begin with. So now comes point number three, selecting multiple colors and multiple color variations. Try to build some draft palettes and try to test for color contrast. Like one of the biggest deals in the design landscape is accessibility, because you're trying to build digital products that are accessible and readable by everyone. So building products that don't pass accessibility ratios and color contrast ratios, that may harm your website or product or app a lot. For that reason, I'm gonna leave the link to this tool that I use on a daily basis called Color Contrast Checker down in the description. And the way it works is basically compare any two color to one another. So you place the color of your foreground in one field and the color used in the background, or you intend to use in the background in the other field. And this tool will tell you on these indicators whether these two colors together pass accessibility and contrast variations or not. Also, if you're using Figma or XD, Stark plugin is definitely one of my favorite plugins to speed up the process a little bit and quickly measure contrast ratios if I'm working on drafts or like small projects. You can definitely check that one out as well. So now you have a good understanding of the business goals. You align these goals to the design process and selected the right colors, and you've definitely conducted the accessibility and contrast tests to make sure everything is legible. Comes point number four, which is organizing color hierarchy. So organizing color hierarchy is very important because once you get your color palette done, that's just step number one. What comes after this is equally important. Building the visual hierarchy based off of these colors. So one of the things, one of the trickiest things in the design process in general is like after you select the colors, test them for contrast and accessibility and everything, the trickiest part is actually how to utilize these colors. Which color should work as the master color in the background, which color should go on the foreground, because we tested these colors and we know for sure that all these colors pass the contrast and accessibility tests. So now what can go wrong? Actually, a lot of things can go wrong because these tools, these automated tools, whether we're talking about the color contrast checker.com or even the plugins we can download and install on Figma and XD and even Sketch, they don't really test the visual aesthetic of these color combinations together. So that relies on you as a designer. So you have to keep testing over and over and over until you finalize with the best combination based off of these colors. So which color goes in the background, which color goes in the foreground, which color group represents the primary color palette, which represents the secondary color palette based on the context of your product and how you intend to draw attention to this product. Accent colors, one of the biggest topics. Where should we use accent colors? Buttons and call to actions or something else for outlines or text. It really depends on the context of your environment, the product you're working on, the underlying theme and pattern. One more thing that would definitely help you a lot building up a successful color palette and utilization is to collaborate as much as possible with branding and marketing teams. And of course, if you have a dedicated creative designer working on a team, that would be awesome. That will be the ideal scenario. But if not, you definitely have to rely mostly on just collaborating with people, create multiple variations and iterations, show them, collect feedback, try to mix and match again. It's a little bit of a lengthy, tedious process, especially in the beginning if you don't have anything to start from. But once you get it right, you're good. You're just golden. Step number 5 and the final step that I personally conduct in building any new color palette is check for text legibility. So text legibility is a little bit different than the color contrast test that we conducted with the color palette, because this time we have to test if the typographic scale we're using fits all the color groups combined into our color palette or not. So we're testing font size, we're testing style, we're also testing text color. This is, again, there's just one of those like tedious tasks that you have to go through, and it's not like the most fun process because it takes a lot of mixing and matching. You have to just try multiple, almost endless variations and compare them to one another. The final result is definitely worth it. That's basically, this process is what makes some products on the App Store, Android Store, or even some just regular websites stand out and some don't. These are pretty much the overarching guidelines that I have or prefer to have in my process, and it makes my job much easier. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, the links to all the tools I use are down in the description, so don't forget to check that out. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time.